Joanna died when she was 18. At least that's as close as I can figure out. But she had just graduated from high school. She had just gone back home to Germany, and then we got the news that she was dead, and I just remember being absolutely floored. You see, Joanna was an exchange student that we had come over from Germany to live with us during her last year of high school. And during that time, I absolutely fell in love with her. She was the coolest person ever. She played around with me. She was really patient. She was always willing to engage and interact. And that totally transformed me in many ways that I can't even describe. But I think in some sense, her death actually had a bigger impact on me than her life ever would have. Because we had another exchange student who went back to Germany, and I've never seen her again. But she's still alive, and I still see, some of the things that she does with her life on a day-to-day basis. And I never missed her in the same way that I did with Joanna. I think there's something about that death and knowing for sure that you're never going to see somebody again that really changes things. And as a 7-year-old, I was obviously completely ill equipped to handle death. But in many ways, I think 7-year-olds may actually be better equipped because the idea of suicide just really doesn't enter your mind. But it got so bad for me that my mom decided to put me into therapy to try to help with the depression. And I was feeling betrayed and angry and very, very upset by the whole situation because I felt like my parents had kept the information from me, like they'd been hiding it. And then, of course, I was angry that Joanna was dead and that I'd never see her again. And then I was shocked at the same time by the speed at which it had all happened, where essentially she was with us 1 month, went back home. We were all excited, for her to go see her family again, and then she's dead, gone, nothing left, kind of thing. And it was startling because this is a very young person. This is somebody who's not supposed to die, and I didn't know what to do with that. But I think that shock, that knowledge that this person isn't supposed to die, is actually what solidified so many of the mentalities that I hold even till today. They've shaped who I am and how I've lived my life in fundamental ways that I think can actually benefit people. So the first thing that it taught me is that you better not waste your time living a life that you hate. My dad and my mom, they both spent so much of their lives working at a traditional 9-to-5 type of job. They were both computer programmers. And to me, it always seemed like such a waste because they'd spend their lives at work with people they didn't really care about. And then all of the people they did care about, they'd only see on rare occasions, like holidays, and they weren't home to spend time with us as often as maybe they would like to or we would like to. And while my mom was a stay-at-home for a while, it's something that now that I'm a mom myself, I know for sure is something she felt she missed out on, because you're not there to see your children grow up. You're not really there to interact with them throughout their lives as much when you have to work. And so often that's what people do with their lives, is they just accept the paradigm that's been handed to them, and they're like, well, everybody else works, I might as well do that too. And for me, that was never an option because I knew I would be wasting my life away. I knew that I didn't want to live that way. I wanted to have my time available for the people that mattered. I wanted to be able to be there for the important events. I wanted to be at people's weddings. I wanted to have people over and spend the day with people and just be outside interacting on a day-to-day basis or on a week-to-week basis with my friends and family and just enjoying those relationships because, in all honesty, stuff really not that important. People, very, very important. You cannot replace anybody ever. I think it's crazy when people say that they can replace one boyfriend with another when it's just not the case. There is nobody like that individual, whoever they are. There is nobody like them. They are entirely unique. And while there may be some similar personality traits, you don't want to miss out on that individual, which kind of leads into the second thing that I learned, which it's definitely better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all. And I've actually experienced loss like this on a couple different occasions. There were two actually that were huge. The first was Joanna, obviously, but then I also lost a really close male friend when I entered high school, where he, for whatever reason, decided he didn't want to interact with me anymore, and he kind of just disappeared off the radar. And I remember feeling so rejected by that. And in some ways, I think that type of loss is actually harder than death, because when death comes, there's nothing you can do about it. Whereas when somebody just leaves or rejects you, you kind of are left with the question, could I have done something differently? Could I have behaved in a different way in order to get them to stay? But the reality is, I don't regret either of those relationships. I don't regret giving my heart to those relationships. I don't regret investing fully into them and being truly authentic and being truly connected and being honest and vulnerable. None of those things do I regret. In fact, because I was so genuine and authentic and invested in those relationships, I have an easier time with this question of, could I have done something? Because I know that I did everything that I could possibly think of to fix the issue when this second loss happened. So I definitely think that while guarding your heart can prevent pain, oftentimes the pain is going to be so much less important in your life than the love. And when you're able to understand that, when you're able to see the difference between the feeling of loss and the lifetime of love that you experience, you really start to understand how valuable it is to have that person in your life, whoever they are, somebody that you can be close to, somebody that you can genuinely be connected to. Because to me, that's the most important thing, is the people. It cannot be replaced. And for that reason, the third lesson kind of comes in, which is holding grudges against somebody who's wronged you is just an absolute waste of time. And I know plenty of people who hold on to grudges like nobody's business. And I personally look at that and I go, stop it. Like, you never know when that person that you're hating on is going to die. They could die tomorrow and you will have no warning, and you'll regret being angry with them. You'll regret holding that grudge, because that is preventing you from actually being connected. That's preventing you from being happy and cooperative and discovering life together and creating something worthwhile. So grudges are just such a waste. Like, it's a waste of your relationship. It's a waste of your time. It's a waste of your energy, because it takes so much effort to be constantly angry at somebody. So learning how to let go of that, I think, is really important. But one of the best ways to let go of a grudge is to realize that person may not be here tomorrow. If they died tomorrow, what would I do now to get this relationship back on track? What would I be willing to get past if I knew they weren't going to be here tomorrow? If I knew that these were the last words I was going to say to them? And coming at relationships from that perspective, I think, is going to be much healthier as far as creating better relationships and creating a better life. So all of these things are super duper important for creating the life that you want to live. Ultimately, I think everybody needs to acknowledge the value and importance of relationships. And we need to invest more time into those things. And for that reason, we kind of have to focus, at least for a percentage of time, on the other avenues of life so that we have the time to invest into relationships. I have a coach who says that 95% of problems are solved by money, and the other 5% are usually solved by time, which you don't have because you spend your whole life working for money. So oftentimes we have to get our money in order before we can have the time to really invest in other people. And then our health falls into that same category as well. If we aren't able to physically be in a healthy position to where we can chase our children around the house, that's something that we need to focus on. So generally speaking, while getting your mind right and getting your behaviors right is going to be a huge part of it, you also have to recognize that you may not want to live the life that everybody tells you you should be living, because it doesn't give you the results that you're looking for. I want to be with my friends and family. I want them to have the time to spend with me as well. And that means I have to create a lifestyle outside the 9 to 5, outside the traditional life that people are handing to me, saying, no, I'm not willing to accept this half life. I'm not willing to waste my time living a life that I hate, doing something that I don't think is particularly valuable. So here I am taking a step out, maybe taking on a bigger risk than what other people would do, creating YouTube video content, trying to create the life that I'm looking for. And who knows how long that's going to take. There's not much that I can control other than putting out content and testing out editing and testing out different thumbnails and titles. But I can't tell when or if my audience is going to come in. I don't know when that's going to happen. I don't know when I'm going to get the customers that I need in order to build a viable business. None of those things are in my control. But I need to focus on what I can control, because that is what's going to make all the difference. So Joanna's death was one of those things I can't control, but it inspired me to take control of my life and start moving in a positive direction. And I hope that her death can also inspire you to do the same thing.